So this is the 5-minute how to get a NAG1 out of a rear-wheel drive 300 Magnum Charger. First things first is get a sucker and get one of these. Suck the fluid as much as you got out. I got about 3 quarts out of the transmission oil pan. Put it up, obviously raise the car up. You don't need it that high, just enough to get the transmission out. I'll show you basically what the steps are. Now, the nice thing about this is you don't have to drop the exhaust at all. Typically these exhaust, now this is the rear-wheel drive version. Mileage will vary with the all-wheel drive. It's probably not going to work with the all-wheel drive. So some of the steps are, obviously, you need to get the torque converter off. You're going to unplug this little clippy here, right? Then you're going to take 13mm bolt off. That's the wiring on the starter. It should be off. There might be a little cover on it. That's that. You're going to pry these little covers here off. There's one here. There's one here. There's a little clip there. You're going to take a little fork, get the clip out of there, yank those out of there. You might get drainage. Be careful. You're supposed to replace these clips when you do this. There's going to be 3 15mm bolts for the starter. Starter comes out. Undo this exhaust, this O2 sensor. There's a little bolt on the back side here. Take that little bolt off, then take that cover off. Cover, torque converter, plate, bolts, cover looks like that. Spin the engine. You're gonna get these, you know how to get torque converter plates off, I hope. There should be, I think, 8 of them on a Hemi. So you got this off. You're gonna undo this guy. All right, you're gonna turn this thing down. You're gonna turn this thing down, pull that out. Done. Okay, so you're gonna pull this guy out, this connector. Look for oil. If you see oil, this is not oil. This is actually some spray I sprayed on here. The cleaner spray. Look for oil on that. If you got oil on that, you need to address that. Get a kit for. There's seals that go in here so it doesn't leak. Okay, over to the driver's side. You're gonna, like I said, you've undone the O2 sensor here. You've undone this O2 sensor here. Now you got the shifter cable to get off of here. So you're gonna pry it off that little nut right there, and then you're gonna push these little pieces of plastic in. There's little plastic trims here, and you're gonna push those in, and this will slide out, right? So you'll take this guy, you'll take the shifter cable completely out of it, right? That's done. So the shifter cable's out. Then you start attacking the bolts. So these are pretty much all 15s. Be careful of the sizes, etc., etc. You also need to get back on the passenger side. You'll need to take off the dipstick. Now there's a ground up here. There's a ground up there. You'll see the ground up there, shiny bolt. And you'll have to there's a tiny little bolt here, and get this dipstick out of here. Then you will have, I believe these are attached. This might be attached. That plate up there might be attached too. All this stuff will all come off when you take all those bolts out. Obviously, you don't take all the bolts out yet till you're ready. So, all right. So now you come back here. Now this is a Hemi, so it's got the slightly different. You're going to basically pull all those out of here. You're going to pull those off. And you're going to push this guy back. You might need to get bolts behind the back, nuts on the back of the nuts. And you only need to do the 3, right? You don't need to do the 6 because you can leave it on there. So you can leave the Umbro joint on there. So you do that one. See that star, indent hex, the star wrench. So there's 3 of them to get the drive shaft off. So you pull the drive shaft off, it'll compress back, right? So that side's done. This is all done back here, right? So now you're going to, now I got to remember, I think you need to support the engine here. You're going to have to support the engine somewhere here on the oil pan to get this to hold up, right? And, sorry, I forgot to drain this guy. Now this once you get this enough drained, you might have to, I did it a couple times. Once you get it enough drained, you can actually just drop it with just enough oil in it. where you don't have, and if you're real careful, you can do it. So you're gonna have to support this right here, right? To do the back though, to get the oil pan and stuff off. Let me see if I can hook this right here. My light keeps putzing me around. So to get this, you're gonna put a support like right here to hold this back of this up. And then you can take this plate off, right? You can take this whole thing out of here. Bunch of bolts here, take this, get rid of this whole thing. Then you can pull this, and you can pull the oil pan. And that's about it. And then just finish up getting the torque converter bolts, spin it around, spin it by the crank, get the torque converter bolts off, get the rest of the bolts around the transmission off, and you're pretty much done. And that's it. Honestly, it's real easy, fairly simple. It's not super heavy, so I'm going to use it just a roller jack. And I kind of wrestle these things around a little bit. Sometimes I take a flywheel plate and I put bolts. I'll show you real quick. A flywheel holder, what I do is I take long bolts like this. I put them through the plate, and I put 4 of them. This one just happens to be really good, so I put 4 of these big bolts. If I need to, I can space them out some way. You know, you can make a metal bracket or something. Just something. I use the flywheel as the base plate. And then I mount that on top of a jack. Now that will go on top of a 1.5 ton Harbor Freight jack. So that's how I make a transmission jack real quick. So on this side, I mean, literally all you have is the shifter, right? You literally just have the shifter. And then you have the tranny, the connector. There's no other electrical connectors on this. Let's look at the bolts. So you got, the nice thing about they don't have one sticking out the top of the bolt, right? So they got 1, 2, 3. This is obviously reverse, and that's the pin. And there's 2 down there. And then there's the starter one, the starter group right there. And that's about it. So it's pretty easy. And these aren't that tricky to get to. These two here on the top are really, you can get to them fairly reasonable. So, and that's a NAG1. That's it. I know kind of probably maybe 7 minutes, but anyways, later. Okay, so let's look at this side of the NAG1. So here you have the dipstick and the connector, obviously, right? So you have this connector here, and then you have the tranny core, and that's all you have on this side, right? That's it. Let's look at the other side.